In this video, we're going to focus on creating these nice rounded rectangular labels around our donut slices. And if I refresh, as you can see here, the animation will work nicely along with it. So let's start to look how to do this. The first thing what we need to do is get a border template, which you can find here on chartjs3.com getting started. Once you scroll down here, copy this chunk of code and you're good to go. Next, if you want to get the source code of this video and many others, check out my Patreon page and of course join the Discord channel. All the links are in the description box. So what we're going to do here first is convert this into a donut chart. Let's say a donut. And I'm going to remove the scale here. We don't need this. Let's save this, refresh. Next, what I want to do here is remove the legend. We don't need the legend, but I will need extra space. As you can see here, there's not enough space to make those square labels. So that's what we're going to do right now. First thing here, we're going to say here, remove the legend. So we say plugins, then legend, and I say here display set to false. Save that, refresh, there we are. Now I want to change the maintain aspect ratio, so we have more space on the left and right side. So what I'm going to do here is just before the plugins, we're going to say here main or aspect ratio, and we'll set this on a rectangle shape instead of a square. By default, for a donut chart and pie chart, it is number 1. So we're going to say here number 2. So the ratio will be 2 to 1. As you can see here, that works, and now we have enough space here. Of course, we could add additional space at the very top and bottom, and I think we'll be needing it later on, but let's add up some of it. So we're going to say here layout, we're going to do some padding. You're going to say here padding, and what I will say here, specifically top, I want 20 pixels additional padding, and the bottom 20 pixels. Put a comma here, save, refresh, and as you can see here, now we have more space. We might need more, but we will see about that. Doesn't really matter much. So now we have all of this here. Let's start to create our item. So for this, we're going to scroll down here, up to the options, comma, say plugins, and then what we're going to do here is add the plugin name. And the plugin name will be, we can just call it donut slice labels or label. I'm going to copy that, but you can give it anything you want. So then I'm going to say your constant, this will be the plugin, ID will be the plugin name, and then we're going to say here before datasets draw. Doesn't really matter, you can do after, it's one or the other, because it will not impact it at all, so we can just do it like that. And it will not impact our drawing of our segment of the slices. So what I'm going to say here, arcs and plugins. So now what I want to do is see an object destructure. I'm going to say constant and ctx. I want to draw on the canvas, and we might use a tooltip. I think we don't need the tooltip, so I'll just leave it like that. So once we did this, what I want to do is I want to say ctx.save to save all variables above, and then we're going to start work on all the data we need. So what I want to do is I want to get the center of this, and the center would be basically, you can see here the tooltip pointer points it out, but I want to be here somewhere, exactly in the middle of this slice, of every slice to be exact. And then I want to make sure it rotates, and of course we draw a rounded border rectangle. So let's start to work on doing this. To do this, I'm going to use first some details from chart.js, which is built in. I'm going to say chart.get data set meta, and then we're going to say here dataset index 0, and let's start with this. Let's save this, refresh, open up the developer tab, and you can see here we get all the object information. And what I really want is all the coordinates here, x and y, and more specifically, if I open one of these, we get here the angle, the end angle, the starting angle, and then we have here the outer radius, which is basically this border here at the outside that I need to know exactly from this center point here. The x and y center point are these here. Well, this is the arc element from data point 0. They are all the same in value because they all start from this point. Basically, that's the arc, how it's being drawn. So let's start to organize this data now. So we say here data And then we'll just grab index 0, and then later on we can do a for loop or for each loop to loop through every one of these data points. But what I want to get here is the center x coordinate and the center y coordinate, which is these two here. So what I'm going to say here, enter, enter, and say here constant x center equals this, and then of course dot x. Then what I want to do is I want to copy this, say here y center dot y. So that's number one. We need this because so we can calculate from this angle here in the center later on how many pixels or what is the x and y coordinate to draw this item. So we have this one, that's number one. The next thing what I want to grab is the end angle and starting angle. As you can see here, this is the pi, and we're going to calculate that so we know the exact coordination of x and y. We'll be needing, well, this is the starting angle, end angle, and we need the center of that here somewhere, or depending on what the slice is, the position of the slice. So all of these we'll just grab. We're going to say here, end angle equals, and I'm going to grab all of this, copy this end angle. Then I'm going to grab this one, and we say here starting angle as well. So we have this start angle, copy this. And then what I basically need here is not these two, but I need the value in between. So the value in between is basically the following. It's basically, well, let's say constant center angle equals the start angle plus end angle divided by 2. However, we have to make sure that this is being calculated first. We need to prioritize the plus first, and then we divide that. Alright, so now we have this here. Another item that I wanted was the outer radius. That's this one here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy of this. I'm going to paste it in there. I'll say here outer radius. I'm just going to grab that and put it in here. And this outer radius is basically the line here, but remember, we don't want to be on this exact line. We want to jump a bit further. So what I'm going to say here is plus maybe 20 pixels or something like that. Let's try with 20. I think we even need more, but let's do with 20 first. So once we did this, now we have almost everything except the x and y coordinates. But I guess I'll do that later on. Let's start to use these two now in action. Because what I need to do is I need to calculate this, but for that I need to translate or basically say I want a new 0, y, and 0, x point. Normally it's here in the corner, but I want to put it in the center because from the center we start to calculate everything. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to say ctx dot translate, and what I'm going to do here is put in the item. I'm going to say the translated or the new 0 point will be x center, y center. This is very important. Next, make sure you have this, the save, and have as final is ctx.restore to undo it, or else you get a very weird response in chart.js. So now if I have this here, you will see if I create something, let's create a very simple rectangle so you have an understanding. We say here a fill rectangle. We'll say here this will be the x and the y coordinates, and then we have here the width and height. I'll just make it 10, 10, 10, and this one I'll start at 0, 0. So basically this will be a square exactly here. If I remove this, you will see it will jump here. There we are. Alright, so now you know this difference, and this difference is crucial for calculation in our case. Now, what I want to do is start working on creating the shape. So how do I get this shape basically there? Well, let's put that back here. So what I want to do, what I want to do is I want to move this shape here, and I'm going to use some formulas for that. So let's put this all together, and then this is the following what I'm going to do. I'm going to calculate the new x and y coordinates. So I say constant x coordinate, alright, alright, yeah, I think that is correctly spelled, I'm not sure. Yes, it is, alright. So then what I want to do here is I'm going to say, alright, we started at the 0 point, then I'm going to say here plus the outer radius, and the outer radius has an additional 20 pixels, so it jumps up a little bit. And then what I want to do here is use or multiply this by math.cosine, and then we're going to say here the center angle. This is the angle that I wanted to calculate. I want to get here basically the new x coordinate, where it would be somewhere here. The same we're going to do for the y coordinate. So we're going to put that in there. I'm going to say here y, except here we don't say math.cos or cosine. We're going to say math.sine. There we are. Once we have this, we have a new x and y coordinate here. Let's put that in there, and we should have now a new position. And as you can see here, this is beautiful. It works already right away. So this was 20 pixels away. So now what I could do here is start to create the shape that I want. And the shape will be a rounded rectangle. So what I need to do is a few things. So I'm going to say here, ctx.begin path. I need to say here now, I'm going to create a shape, but it's independent of anything else. Then we have the translate. Then what I want to do here is say ctx.fill style to get the color. And in this case, what I will do with the color, I'll just get it directly by accessing the data here. The data. So what we could do here, put a comma, data, and then from the data, I'll just get the background color or border color. So it's nice and solid, clear. So from data, data sets, border color. That's it. So I'm going to say here, whatever this is, you could do here black, for example, which is by default, but now in my case, it will be data.data sets, index 0, because I only assume there's one data set in here, and I would say here border color, and for now I will just say border color index 0. That will be the red or reddish color. Let's save that, refresh. Alright, that is working, but now let's start to convert this into a proper shape. Say here, round rectangle, and in here I need the x coordinate, the y coordinate, the width, the height, and the border radius. So basically the radius. So for this, I'll just make it 10. And for these here, I'm going to copy and put them in here. The width and height, for the width, I'll just give it a very simple 50 pixel. For the height, for the height I'll give it 50, but for the width, I'll have to soft code that later on, depending on the text of our label. For now, I will just hard code a 50 pixel. Let's delete this one. Then, what I want to do here, ctx.fill to draw the shape. Let's save that, refresh. There we are, and as you can see here, we're slightly off. We calculate correctly, but how it's being calculated, it calculates this point, and then it draws from here downwards, or basically that's the way how it works. So what I need to do is I need to move this a bit more up. So what we can do here is get some of these data here. I guess we can just say here, recalculate the position, and say minus 25 pixels because we have here 50-50. Minus 25 pixels, let's save that. That's a bit more better, but I feel like we need to move a bit more away, and that should be here. Maybe 50 pixels, that makes it better. And as you can see here, as we do this, we might later on be clipped off of our drawings. On the layout padding, we have to work on that as well. However, we got now most of it, and I'm quite satisfied with that. Then I want to continue on, and what I want to do next is start to work with the width. Basically here, this is the width here, 50, of the shape. However, I want to make it intelligent in the sense of that if we have a long text, it should be long. If we have a short text, it should be just fit that text and nothing more. Alright, so first, let's create the text, and then we can continue on by calculating the thickness. So first of all, I'm going to say a ctx.font equals, we're going to make this a bold 20 pixel font. And then we say here sans serif, which is the default font size of that chart.js uses. Well, not the font size, but the font family. If you want the font size, that should be 12. Next, what I want to do is I'm going to give it a color. I'll just make it white because everything else will have a darker color. White makes sense. So what I'm going to do is just going to grab this, put it in here, and just say here a hard-coded white. Let's save that. So we have this here. Let's see. We want to we adjusted this one, we have the white. What I want to do next is we should have text. Let's put in some text. I'm going to say ctx.fill text. And then here what we need is the label, basically. And then we have here the x and y coordinates. For now, I'll just make this black just to make sure it stands out, because if we are on the white area, it's probably hard to spot. So what I want to do is I want to just grab this x coordinate and this y coordinate, and then the label, we'll check that later on, or we adjust this later on, just to see if we get something. And I notice we are getting nothing. Alright, so x coordinate, y coordinate are there, label, fill text. Let's see what's going on, or are we somehow missing something? Alright, I do see the mistake. So the mistake here is basically this item here. Once we restore, it removes the translation as well here. So that's why these coordinates are then suddenly wrong, or you cannot find it because it's just being repositioned. I need to make sure we cut out that and put it in here at the very end. Let's save that, refresh. There we are. Now you can see here the label. I want to move this down. And label should not be label. I want to grab the text here, data labels. So we're going to just do that one. Let's say data.labels index 0 for now. Later on we'll softcode that. There we are. Let's push this down a bit. So to push this down, we can do a few things here. I'm going to just do this first. Let's say ctx.text align equals center. That's number one. Then I want to do, well, let's save that first. Refresh. Alright, now it's in the center here, so we can play around with that. But we need to know the width of our text. I want to have also the baseline alignment. So say ctx.align, or sorry, no, text baseline. So it's on a vertical level being aligned as well. So we can say here middle, save, refresh. Alright, that looks slightly better. Now what I need to do here is start working on putting it in the right place. So how do we do this? So we have here the coordinates, and I think we need to start working on the text width. And the text width would be 50% here, probably a X amount of pixels down. We're going to look on that. So what I want to do here, because the text width will also impact this 50 here, because this should understand the thickness of that. Alright, so what I'm going to do is, I'm going to say here, I'm going to use the following. I'm going to say a ctx, or let's call it constant text width. And then here, we're going to say ctx.measure text. And then what we're going to grab is this data labels, index 0 for now, dot width. When I do this, I can copy this, put it in here, and let's save that and refresh. And now, as you can see, you might say, what is going on? Why is this smaller than this? Well, this should be correct. The issue here is, if you look at the font size that we have defined, by default it is set on 12. But we can measure first the width based on font size 12 and font family of Arial. So what we want to do is we want to copy this or cut this, move it up. So we are telling the canvas we have this as font size and font family, and please consider the bold thickness. If I do this, save, refresh, now it is nicely fit. But what I would like to do is have some padding on left and right. So what I'm going to do here, plus maybe 20 or 30 pixels, let's say 20 pixels, so we have enough space. Alright, let's move this now accordingly down. So how do we do this? We have here the text width, and then what I want to do here is the text width. I'm going to say here, probably we need to move this 50% more to the right. So that's basically text width divided by 2. To do that, I'm just going to say a constant center width equals text width divided by 2. That makes sense. So we have the half of it. Make sure we spell this correctly. Then what I want to do is this, say plus that, save, plus the center width. Now we are here. Let's move it down more, and we know the height here is 50. We know the center would be 25, or sorry, 20. So the height is 50, so if we move to the center, it is maybe plus 25. Well, that makes sense. We say here plus 20, sorry, not here, but on the y coordinate plus 25. Let's save that, refresh, and I think this is very good. Let me just cross-test this with a long text, Monday, save, refresh. Alright, that looks good. So let's start to place this all over the area. So to do this, I need to do a few things first. Let's say this should be white. There we are. Then let's put in more items. So what we can do here now is a for each loop. So we have here the save. I'm going to put it here before the save. I'm going to remove this console log, or let's just only use this here. I need this part. And then what I want to do here, I want to say this, and then here we're going to get it for every data point. So say for each data point, we're going to have here, let's call it the data point, index, function arrow expression, and then in here I'm going to cut everything and nest it within there, including the restore and save. Very important, or else it will not work properly. There we are. Put it all in here. Let's save that, refresh. Nothing happens yet. Let's move this all around by fixing this 0 with the index, or replacing the 0 with the index. This is the data, alright. This is the data. This one, alright, there we are. We have here the labels, we have the border color, and we have here the labels again. Save that, refresh. There we are, we got everything, but as you can see here, we should have a bit more space, make it a bit more narrow. So what we could do here, maybe for the padding, instead of top and bottom, 20, maybe we need 50, another 50, save, refresh. I'm not satisfied with that, we could do it a bit more larger, 75 I guess, save, there we are. Of course we could change this maybe if we don't want a aspect ratio, maybe 1. Let's see what happens. I think this is fine as well. Of course, this is a one note. If you have a very long text, it might clip off some of your items. But this is basically it, and there we are. We have our rectangle or rounded rectangle labels.